This would happen when people are food. Can you believe, Joanne, they told the people in Cleveland, don't be like Dr. Brooks. She got voted into the school board. Shut up, Dr. Brooks. She's a school board member. Now, Upchurch and the state rep, he can't vote for those school board members. Tell them, Upchurch, can you vote for a school board member?
I cannot.
How long is that gonna be for?
I hope our mayor changes that so we can vote for school board.
No, mayors don't change that. You know better than to say that.
Yeah.
That's how. Hold it, you can't talk while I talk. Don't you know I'm teaching? And I want you particular, Mike.
Okay, all right.
Let me tell you, listen carefully. It has to be changed in the legislature. In the legislature. You need to get rid of that law as fast as you can. Since the law has passed, Miss Jackie, you in education, Reverend. Cleveland has been at the bottom ever since it's been that way. Ain't moved. What's that boy over there that runs, who's the CEO over there, what's his name?
Very good.
Same spot. He must be doing a good job, cause he's still the CEO, ain't he?
Yes,
They must like it down there. All right, no politics in here. All right. Nate, you ready?
I'm ready.
I want you to give him the Nate before we go to Reverend Anthony L. Small. Why I appreciate Juneteenth as a national holiday.
Why I appreciate Juneteenth as a national holiday. As I look around the room and see all these beautiful people, I'm going to say something to you that is, I can't let go, and Charlie will let me do that. All of you have something to offer. All of you have gifts, skills, and talents. And you leave here and go home or wherever you're going, talk about Juneteenth to your family, to your grandkids, to the kids that are coming after us, because it will continue. You've talked about the sacrifices we've made. You've talked about what we've been through. But the struggle continues. It continues because it's not over. When you look at the select thing on TV of what Trump tried to do, and he ain't in jail. We've got to educate our people. If there's one message that I'll give you about Juneteenth, if the education continues, we continue to learn, we continue to grow, we continue to love each other, like Charlie had. He's been at this for so long. He remembered, he told me this up there. I remember you were young, and who got me started, Charlie?
Fannie Lewis.
Fannie Lewis. You know that. I never say that. Okay?
Fannie Lewis, who we put in office, Max Seals, where you lived in that war. She lost 2 or 3 times. The city of Cleveland wouldn't put her on the RTA board of church, so we ran up a council. And after she had been on council about 6 months, 7 months, CEO George Holmes said we shouldn't have put her on the RTA board because you're changing everything down here. That's why you pastors in here, she gave every pastor who wanted a new church the land for $1. Pass that on for $1. That big church down there on Lexington, the bishop owned down there, $1. The church on 82nd, the Superior Bishop Morberry, $1. Because they wanted to know the church is where you have to go, where your filling station. You have to go where your filling station. And Ward 7 got more churches than any ward in the city. Called the Fannie Lewis. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we're going to interrupt. The rest of you be ready after the keynote speaker, or we're going to get it on.
All right. Pettigrew!
Reverend Anthony L. Small Sr. I just spoke about his dad, Edward Small, who came to East Cleveland and turned the town completely around. He was on Lakeview, and he moved into East Cleveland, and we told him Dr. Eugene Jordan, who has passed on to glory. The Reverend, if you get involved out here in East Cleveland, you're gonna have to get a bigger church, or you have to go to a new thing that was new at that time. 2 services. And fool around and somebody got, police killed somebody wrong. They did it wrong. And from then on, Starlight was the light for East Cleveland. Reverend Anthony L. Small, come on down and introduce our keynote speaker today. Because you guys, they already been working today, they ain't seen nothing yet the thing they gonna be doing. Anthony L. Small and Dr. Brooks.
Yes, sir.
Tell the President, Una H. Keenan, we'll be back in business next year doing the Martin Luther King march and all, band and all, starting it all, we'll be a Starlight, we're gonna do it all. 15. We thought we were gonna do it last year with that big old snowstorm, y'all remember that. Thank you, Reverend. Oh, yeah.
I say good afternoon to everyone. I'm so glad I did stay have another meeting. I told them that I would be late, but they wanted me to introduce our keynote speaker. And just let me just add to that, Brother Bibb. You and Jackie must have been to the same school because y'all get commentary after each one of them. Amen. But I'm going to tell you this here. When Charlie talked about the 15, that was true. I was just a little boy in 68 or 67 when they brought Martin here. And they had the sneaking man in a hearse. And I was a little boy out at 997 Lakeview Road because none of the big churches would come because they was afraid they were burning down churches. And right now you see we're almost in the same turmoil that's going on now when they're going in churches and shooting out parishioners. So we have to be on guard. But I was a little boy and saw that. And I still post that picture with Dad and Martin Luther King shaking his hand. So it was at Starlight where he came, and he came in and he moved the city of Cleveland where we had the first black mayor of a multi-colored city. The person of all these things. It gives me great pleasure. Thank you for the school board members, some of them that are here, that allowed these Cleveland concerned pastors to bring together and put the vision, the new vision for these Cleveland school system to get us out of emergency. And one of the gentlemen that we had chosen to take over our school system to make sure that we stay on track with learning, training, and instruction of our babies. And that is the person I'm about to bring to this podium now. If he will come, Dr. Henry Pettigrew, we will put your hands together and show us the
All right. Well, Nate got me all fired up. I didn't know which direction I was going to go with this until I heard Nate. I'm glad to be here today. We celebrating Juneteenth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I have 3 points on what Juneteenth means to me as a federal holiday. But I want to first, get an anchor text, Pastor. We got to anchor our text so that we have something to refer to as we have in this conversation. What I chose to use is the general order, number 3, that Gordon Granger was given to take to Galveston, Texas, as the last stop, to let them know that the Emancipation Proclamation took place and the Civil War was over. But see, at Galveston, they didn't know that. So before I get to that point, let me read this for you. General order number 3, you can Google it and look it up.
Yes.
It says the people are informed. Now see, a general order, this is coming from the military. This is a military decree, this is a military order. This is serious business. We're not playing when we say a general order needs to go out and this general needs to take it and carry it throughout all of the Union. The people are informed that in accordance with the proclamation of the executive of the office of the United States, all slaves are free. I want you to repeat with me after I say that. All slaves are free.
All slaves are free.
That's going to be the title of our message, and that's going to be very important. And when we leave this place today, we need to remember that all slaves are free. All descendants of the slaves are free. It said this involves the absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves and the connection heretofore existing between them. That become that between employer and hired labor. So they went from being master to slave to being employer and labor. Something had to change. The freed are advised to remain in their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. Idleness, my Lord. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about this Juneteenth conversation. The first part there, I said all slaves are free, right? Point number one, all slaves. My first point, remember the legacy of the oppression. When it says all slaves, it means us. It means the descendants of the slaves. It means the 40 million of us that can trace our heritage back to folks that got taken from their home and put on these ships, and a majority of us died on the way in this middle passage to get here. When it says all slaves, we need to remember Juneteenth is about celebration, brother. It's about freedom, but it's also about having an acute understanding that we used to be slaves. Sometimes folks forget that. And they running around here playing in life like we didn't used to be oppressed. You think you got all this liberty and you can do all these things. But we have to also always remember that we were all slaves.
Yes.
They say we have to tell the story. So many of our young people, I'm in the school, so many of our young people don't know the heritage. I remember when I was a young person, thankful for my parents and our pastor, eyes on the prize. We used to watch that faithfully, eyes on the prize, every single episode. Right? Maybe I'm the only one ever seen that. But the point of that was to remember. See, we can't get lost. See, in school to teach you there was dinosaurs and then slaves with the dinosaurs, and then all of a sudden we was today. But we have to remember there was a point in time in our history where we were captured from our homes, captured from our kingdoms, brought over here, and forced to work somebody else's work, and we got no money for it. We need to remember. So when he said all slaves, he's talking about all them folk. Right? Slaves used to cost average about $1,000. Right? About $1,000, right? Sometimes down to $1. They'll just throw you away and give you away. Listen, they still treating us that way today. The spirit of slavery is still here, and we have to remember all slaves.
That's true.
Right? Why did he say all slaves? Because we were in Galveston, Texas, and the war was already over. It'd been 2 years and 2 months. General Leading died, all this stuff. But what happened is them Confederate soldiers, they got smart. They said, well, let's run. So they ran west. See, as the Union started defeating them city by city and taking over and letting folks know all over this great country that all slaves are free, the Confederate folks took their slaves and they started pushing them west to Texas. You ever seen the movie Django?
Oh, yeah.
That's that same place. That's that same area where you start pushing them west. So that's why Gordon Granger had to go with this direct order, this general order. He had to go and tell everybody that these slaves that you've lied to, that you've deceived, that these folks are actually free. My first point there in all slaves are free is that you got to remember. I don't think we remember enough. The red, I put red in my pocket because in Galveston, Texas, when they started Emancipation Celebration Day, that we now call Juneteenth, red represented the blood of our ancestors. Right? We have to remember how many of our folks with our DNA died so that we can even have a celebration like this. We have to remember that. We have to remember that. Because the master won't tell you. They're not going to tell you that you're free. They're going to try to keep you in bondage. My second point, I said all slaves are free. The first point was to remember. The second point was to reconnect. I told you a little bit in that general order. It said that there has to be a reconnection of relationships, right? All slaves is the first point. The second point is the word are. All slaves are free. Are is a present tense. He was coming to some folks that did not know they were free, though they were. And they were behaving and living in a manner and being deceived that they were still slaves when they weren't. I think about our young people today. I think about our older people today. They sitting in the present tense, not understanding that you've been freed. Let me say it a different way. What binds you today? I look at the community that we serve. I talk to the folks that we deal with on a regular basis. There are some people that are in crisis. There are some people that are hurting. They are in bondage of some things, and they're supposed to be free. That should stir up some activism in you. That should stir up some, I want to help my neighbor in you. Because it said that not all slaves are free. Right? Are we doing enough? I heard reparations. Reparations came from the General Order number 38, if you want to Google that. That talked about the 40 acres. Right? And every enslaved person was supposed to get 40 acres. How big is 40 acres? We just built a big old fancy stadium in East Cleveland. A $7 million stadium just got erected last year. Try 30 of those. So each one of y'all, each one of us was supposed to get 30 of those football fields. That's about how much land everybody was supposed to get. Right? But are we doing enough? I think about, because I'm in the schools, which is a governmental institution. I think about other governmental institutions. Are we doing enough to help folks realize that all slaves are free? Because folks in our community are hurting. They are still tied to so many things that beset them, if you will, if I can invoke a few things. But yet somebody needs to go to them. I need to go to them. You need to go to them, just like Gordon Granger did with this order number 3, and say all slaves are free. You don't have to be a slave to that anymore. But my mama, you don't have to be a slave to that anymore. You are free from that if you would just believe the order. You know, when I first started studying Juneteenth, it took 2 years. But that's how long it took for that word to travel. There was no social media. There was none of this stuff. It was horseback. Take that thing on horseback. And then when they told masters that the slaves are free, the master would ball that thing up and throw it away and said, I'm not going to tell the slaves. That sounds like present day where folks are in situations and they're not being told the truth. After slavery came the legal separation. We started talking about Jim Crow. We started talking about segregation. We started talking about racism. Still the spirit of slavery. Because in the general order, they were told by the executive of the United States, which was Abraham Lincoln at the time, that there needed to be absolute equality. Absolute. Me, you, we the same. Yet that's something we still fighting for today. My last point. I said all slaves are free. All slaves, remember, are. We got to reconnect. We got to realize the situation that we're in. We got to realize the broken promise. You didn't get no 40 acres. So some stuff not true. Some things they said to us never took to pass. And what are we going to do about it? The last point. That's free. All slaves are free. My last point is that we're supposed to revitalize. We're supposed to rejoice. We're supposed to fight for the liberty of the folks that look like us. We shouldn't look down at each other. We shouldn't be talking about each other. We should be trying to figure out how can I lift my brother and sister up. That crab in the barrel mentality, the slave owner gave us that mentality. And it's too many things that are in our community. Yes. It has its origins in slavery. It has its origins in that cotton picking. It has its origin in that sharecropping. Yet we do it today. I work in the school system. I'm trying to revitalize the whole school system. Yeah. But as I look around, all slaves are free. Well, if you're free, that means you need to have a grocery store in your community. If you're free, you should have banking opportunities in your community. So if I don't have the same things that them other communities have, that's not absolute equality. And we got some work to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, are we going to fight about it internally? Are we going to point the fingers at each other? Or can we all just roll up our sleeves and fight for all of us? Not some of us. Because I'm going to say this now. Some of us. And we got segregations in our community. And there's divisions even in East Cleveland. that folks will look down to you if you say you're from a different part. We got to dead that. We got to get rid of that. Because the general order said that all slaves are free, not the ones that's up top or down low. All. You invited me, brother. But we got to realize all of us are free, and we have power together. You know what they did after Galveston, Texas in 1865? Once they got this order that all slaves are free, they started setting up businesses. They started setting up banks. And you may have heard of something called the Black Wall Street that went from Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way to Raleigh, North Carolina, where black folks and folks that look like us invested their money and got their money together. We got to do it too. And they died for it. A lot of folks died for it. Oh, there's conflict and equality. Martin talked about that. You can't be scared. But if we all supposed to be free, that's the promise that we need to demand of this nation. We can't let them treat us like we're something else.
No, it's true.
We can. When I take East Cleveland everywhere I go.
Me too. I do too.
Hey, July 3rd, I'm a superintendent. July 13th, I'll be talking to 2,000 superintendents all about East Cleveland. Nationally. We got to get the word out because I need people to understand that we in this city have the ability to fix our city.
Yes.
What Juneteenth means to me, it's also about the economic self-sufficiency. That's what we're really about. Where folks were slaves, you didn't have any money. You had no understanding of financial literacy. You was just working for somebody else. And they was just throwing a bowl of something in front of you when you got back to your house. But now, we're free. Every person is supposed to be able to make decisions that's going to be in the best interest of their families. Communities need to gather together. We need to gather together. Stop playing community and be community so that we can realize this order that we heard in 1865. We all talking about it with Juneteenth. Juneteenth is about watermelons and strawberries and, it's wonderful. We're going to play some good music and celebrate, right? I think I heard you say something about East Cleveland needs to be the first to celebrate in the real way Juneteenth. Well, let me say this. God put this on my heart. I said, why we don't have a Juneteenth parade? We need to start establishing that. And as a school district, we will partner with the city. And we need to start talking and planning about that. And Opal Lee, which is considered the grandmother of the Juneteenth holiday itself, she said we're supposed to be partying from Juneteenth all the way to July 4th. We got to somehow start that.
I hear them. I'm listening.
We got to start that.
I'm listening.
Listen,
You got the power. All right.
our young people don't understand what I'm trying to tell you tonight or today. All slaves are free. I got young people, older people that are still in a state of the folks that were the day before he showed up. They still at June 18th. They still working. They trying to do their best. They don't realize they're free. The message hasn't got to them, or the message has been buried by somebody else. Somebody else threw the message away. It is on us. My call to action for everybody in this room is we leave these doors going out and letting our entire community, the young and the old alike, know all slaves are free. All descendants of slaves are free. All folks that look like they descendants of slaves are free. We have freedom, but it's going to require us to fight. It's going to require us to work. And these new generations, mine included, we done slowed down the momentum. Where are the leaders? We have some in this room. Thank God for the ones in East Cleveland. But we heard other cities don't have the leaders. They don't have the direction. And where there's no vision, they will surely perish.
All right.
But here in East Cleveland, we will remember, we're going to reconnect so that we can revitalize and rejoice. That's what Juneteenth means to me as a federal holiday. Thank you so much.